Welcome back to Get Connected. I'm your host, Con Jackson. Each and every week, we love to highlight someone making a difference, and our next guest is doing just that. Her love transcends what we know it to be. Her name is Randye Kaye. She joins us now, and let's listen to her story. Randye, welcome to Get Connected.
Hi, Con.
First of all, it's great to have you with us. When your son was diagnosed with schizophrenia, how did it make you feel?
Oh. Well, his diagnosis at age 20 came after 5 years of very confusing symptoms where I really didn't know what was happening, and I kept trying to think I could fix it myself. So when we finally got a diagnosis, it was both devastating. I mean, no parent wants to know that their child has a serious illness of any sort, and schizophrenia is a serious mental illness. But it was also a relief because finally, with the diagnosis and an explanation, we could work together to try to figure out what we could do about it. So a diagnosis can be the beginning of stabilization, certainly the beginning of treatment.
Well, Randye, that makes absolute sense. I'm curious, you used the words frustrated, and I'm sure you were very angry. How did you process that emotion?
Wow, that's a really good question. I think that I was looking to see if I was to blame, because maybe there was something wrong with my parenting. But I took a really good look and said, no, I think I'm doing everything right. And I took it upon myself to educate myself about what might be happening. So, looking back, I could say I wish that perhaps some of the healthcare providers had seen the signs sooner, but when I got educated, I realized it's very difficult to diagnose in the early stages without a definite test. So anybody who couldn't fix them, I got a little bit angry with, but overall, I was just trying to plod forward and try to figure it out and have sort of an alliance with healthcare providers, psychiatrists, psychologists, and with my son so that we could all try to figure it out together. And once a diagnosis came, then we could begin to have that therapeutic alliance and look at therapies and the options of therapies that were out there so that we could begin to make things better.
Well, going along with that, Randye, how would you describe that as it relates to caregiving for a family member?
Well, it takes teamwork. Nobody can do it alone, and this is National Family Caregivers Month, and certainly I am fortunate to still be in my son's life and provide some of the caregiving for him, but I couldn't do it alone. So it's just really important that I have information and support and that I take care of myself as well. There are certain things when someone you love has a disability that's going to be different. There's no timetable for recovery. So part of what I have to do is keep an eye on symptoms and report these to the healthcare providers and just make sure things are going smoothly.
Randye, I have to ask, on a personal note, did you ever feel ostracized by other family members, neighbors, or other people once your son was diagnosed?
Yeah, sometimes, yes. One of the reasons I wrote this book, Ben Behind His Voices, One Family's Journey from the Chaos of Schizophrenia to Hope, was to spread the word that, well, first of all, to tell our story, because I think that's how people learn best, but it's also full of some information if people are going through it. And one of the messages of our story is that there are many, many people with schizophrenia, like my son, who are doing quite well in life. And a lot of that stigma comes from people misunderstanding the illness, not really knowing what it is. So there were times, certainly when my son, before treatment began to take hold, where he was exhibiting some odd symptoms, and the neighbors would be like, oh, I don't know if I want to be too near that family. Or once we got the diagnosis, people not understanding what schizophrenia was. And so that's why I'm so thrilled to partner with Synovian Pharmaceuticals to get this message across that with a therapeutic alliance, there's great treatment outcome. My son is working, he's going to school, he's worth loving, he's worth knowing, and there are many, many people with schizophrenia who are doing quite well in life and who deserve respect and love and to feel useful, and they don't deserve stigma. And a lot of that stigma is because the only types of schizophrenia you hear about is untreated schizophrenia. That's kind of what makes the news. And yet, even though 1 in 100 people has schizophrenia worldwide, you often don't hear about the people like my son who are handling their illness with the help of that therapeutic alliance and doing very well. So part of what I try to do is educate educate my family and educate my neighbors by first educating myself so that it could remove some of that stigma.
Well, one thing's for sure, Ben is very lucky to have you as a mom. Now, I know you have a best-selling book out called Ben Behind the Voices. What can we learn from that book? One or two things that would encourage our viewers to go and read the whole thing.
Okay, yeah. Well, first of all, it's really important for family members or anybody loving, taking care of somebody with schizophrenia to get support and education. For me, a lot of my book is a love letter to the National Alliance on Mental Illness, because once I went there and took a course called Family to Family and began to understand what was really happening to Ben, I could then be empowered to help him. So I would say that getting education is definitely one of the messages, and getting support as well. And you can get that through NAMI and just reaching out to people and making sure you educate yourself. So that would be one message. Another message is that early detection can really help the treatment outcome, but especially once you have a clear diagnosis, having a variety of therapies available so that if one doesn't work, you can try another one. And then the families or the caregivers and the professionals and the patient all working together in that alliance with that information can determine if treatment is working. So early detection, getting education and support, and the third would be the reduction of stigma, because I want to spread hope for schizophrenia with proper treatment.
Great advice, Randye. You are a true inspiration. The book sounds wonderful. Thank you for joining us and sharing your message of hope.
Thank you.
If you want to learn about other inspirational folks we've highlighted on Get Connected, simply log on to our Get Connected website at contv.com. Now, when we come back, we're on Manhattan Beach, but we're headed up the beachhead and up to Hollywood, where the stars are, and you'll be surprised who we talk to next. Thank you so much for watching. Are you tired of negative news? We are.
And that's why we're creating a movement.
By keeping it real.
With what you need to know.
It's more than what's happening.
It's bringing hope back to our lives.
So go to contv.com and join our movement.